Good evening, race fans, and welcome to the second race of the second series of the Herd Summer Racing League. Tonight we'll be taking on 3 laps of the Lady Liberty course, which means we have 3 sprints and 3 comms. Your distances are: first KOM is 2.9 to 4.1k, first sprint is 6.3, second comm is at 15.4, second sprint at 18.8, third comm at 27.9, and the third sprint at 31.3, with the finish line at around about 37.6 kilometers. We are 30 seconds away from the start of the D's, so let's quickly switch over to Gordon Sloan.
Yeah, good evening. Also, D's are about to start. It looks like we've got a field of about 30 riders, maybe just under 10-15 seconds to go, and then we'll be off. Looking at the course, it looks like we pretty much go straight up the KOM. The KOM start point isn't until halfway up, so I suspect we'll have the usual crazy start. Just if we give it a second, they're just leaving the pen now, and they're off. How are we going? As it's not been too bad. I mean, the last week's race they didn't start too hard. It looks like we're same here, so they've not gone too crazy out to start, pushing up maybe up to 3 watts, but they're grouped up nicely. And I should be following Steve if I can just catch him out, but he got a first place last week, and I'm expecting good things from him again today. So we'll see how we're getting on. But yeah, just leaving the pens now. See how they group up in a couple of minutes, and then we'll be heading straight up the hill for the first of 3 laps today. Yeah, how else are we getting on? Who are we following in other categories?
So I'm going to be following Ben Poynton in Cat C. He's a bit of a powerhouse, so we're looking for him to go well on the sprints, and he's definitely up towards the sort of topish end of Cat C, and he's going to be hanging on a good day in excess of 300 watts. So hopefully he'll be up there at the pointy end as well. Just on Steve Gordon, how close to is he getting to being bumped into a C?
Let me just get his stats on that. I don't think he's quite there yet. He has been riding with us in the TTTs on Thursday, so he is very close. I mean, all his best 20 minutes are all sort of high 2.4s, so it won't be run race. He'll have to do a few races towards Cat C. I suspect he's probably aiming by the end of the series maybe to hit Cat C, but at the moment he's definitely a strong contender for the overall series here. So he's got a good sprint. He knows where the KOMs are. I think if he can stay near this front group, he has a very good chance of another gold tonight, and won't be getting promoted any time the next couple of weeks, but I'm sure by the end of the 10-week series he'll be very close to it.
Jolly good. We are around about 3 minutes away from the start of the C's. And as you said, Gordon, we'll probably get the usual crazy start, but I expect things to settle down fairly quickly.
Yeah, so there's a wee bit of a front group pulled away. Steve at the moment sitting in the second group. See if we can get him on the screen now. Yep. So and there's a front group of probably half a dozen riders there, just waiting for the live stats to come up on Zwift Power. And then we'll see whether it's riders that he needs to worry about or if he can sit in and just wait. So doesn't look too bad. We'll give it a minute to calm down, but at the moment he's sitting in about 11th place with that front group of half dozen, but with the hill and the KOM coming shortly, I think it's just going to blow up and stretch out quite a bit. One of the longer races today, I believe it's about 36 kilometres, so long way to go. There's no point trying to blow up within the first 5k.
As ever, we've got the you've always got to make a call on the strategy as well. So you'll get some people who want to go for the GC and try and push hard on the sprints and the comms, but then you've got the people who'll sit back and just go crazy for the primes. So I think I mentioned earlier, expects Ben to be up towards the front, but he's one of our heavier racers, so he's probably going to push really hard to try and be midfield in the comm, but expect him to go well in the sprints. And we have 1 minute 45 to go before we set off the C's. Is Steve still in the front group, Gordon?
So no, as I said, he's sort of in a second group, although we've just hit the bottom of the climb, not the KOM yet, but front group. He's come back close to them. He's just edging onto the back end of them, but I think we're just going to see a snake of riders heading up this hill. Although the front group is putting the power down, sort of 3 or 4 watts, so I mean that's what you said with tactics. Are some of them just going to hit the climb and try and go all out for GC, or some of them will sit in and wait and hit the comm? So quite an interesting one to see what riders do, but certainly that front group is putting the power down.
Yeah, I'm actually seeing On Swift Power Live, it looks like Steve is actually the one of the front. No, it's coming backwards and forwards. I think his group is actually leading in terms of Swift Power registered racers.
So that's probably a good thing. If you give it a couple of minutes and just see exactly where riders are. If you're in the front group, there's no point chasing down this front lot because they're just going to blow up. 1 before the KOM officially starts, and then 2 later on. The sprint comes as well straight after the KOM. So there's no need to chase riders if they're not competing against you for points.
Absolutely, and we're down to the last. We're down to 20 seconds before the seeds head off. So Ben will be looking for a good start, and he's certainly got the numbers to get him up to the KOM in good form. So we'll have to see how he goes. But we've got 10 seconds now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's lights out and away we go. And off we go. Ben off to a good start straight away. So he's in what appears to be a front group already, although we've got some who are just trying to stretch out a little bit. It looks like Ben's taking it relatively sensibly in the early stages, knowing he's got a KOM coming up fairly quickly. So he's just dropping back to about 15th place at the moment. And we've got a few people sort of racing past him, but he's holding around about 300 watts as we just go down the hill towards the KOM. Gordon.
Yeah, so we are still approaching up the hill. Still not hit the KOM. I think probably past the KOM marker for the forward of New York KOM, although that is not the KOM we're going up tonight. So the official reverse KOM doesn't start till a wee bit further up the road round the corner, which the look of it, Steve's just sitting in, still nice. He's still sort of pushing 2.25, but I don't think he's quite kicking in yet. But certainly that front group is going on. So looking at Zwift Power, he's on the back of the group. He's about 5th or 6th at the moment in Zwift Power, just keeping in check with the few riders that are just in front of him. But looking good at the moment. He's just hitting that first sort of little ramps that go up to about 10%, but not much point now pushing at this point if you save yourself for the KOM. But you need to make sure you don't get dropped completely, because with the sprint coming so soon after, there's not much chance to find riders for a draft after you come over the top of the KOM. Yeah, how's Ben doing? How did the start get going? Still with the group?
He's got quite a big group of about 8, 9, 10 riders. He's currently bouncing between sort of like 8th and 15th place. So he's got off to a nice start. Having a quick look at Zwift Power now, he is currently in 4th place, although one of the riders in there is apparently an A+, so we may discount him. So he's currently Swift Power around about 3rd, but that'll bounce up and down for the next few minutes before it starts to settle. I think it's time to switch over to Ed Finney for the very first time tonight. Ed, how are you?
Doing well. Still waiting in the pen. We have about 2 minutes, 40 seconds to go. Looks like about 35 riders are in the pen so far this morning. I'm hoping to be following Paul Shuckero tonight. And he's a fairly strong rider, 20-minute power at about 3.7-ish. But there are some strong B riders in there up in the 4s. And so I think there's going to be some good competition there. Max Szymanski up at the 4 watt per kilogram. So it'll be a pretty good chase for Paul, as well as Paul Vance, Daniel Bennett, and a few others, Connor Pollock in there. So we'll see how this thing turns out. 2 minutes to go. We're still waiting in the pen, and I'm hoping to be following Paul for this race tonight. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. Ben has reached the Blue Road, so it's not long before we start to see the some of the higher gradients that we'll see tonight. I think we peak around about 10 to 12%. That's for the reverse KOM. If you hit the forwards, you can get up towards, I think this peak's about 18. But this one is the longer of the two, but definitely the more shallow and slightly more palatable. But we are going well. You can see Ben is there with Lisa Jones, Ben Knopfling, see Alan Chevel's in there as well. A few other names I don't recognise. We've got a few Hurdies in there as well. And we are just about to go over the KOM marker for the forward com, which isn't one we're doing today, as Gordon mentioned. You're looking for the second KOM line for the start of a prime that we'll be doing today. But let's quickly switch back to Gordon and find out how the climb's going.
Yeah, climb looks to be going pretty well with Steve here. So he played it sort of, I don't know about perfectly, but he waited till the official KOM marker and just been sitting about 3.5 watts, which is obviously over FTP for a D rider, pushing up this hill, looking very well. So the few D riders that were ahead of him, he's managed to pass a few of them back. Certainly looks like Adam Plant. Looks like there's maybe a couple still ahead on Zwift Power from the D riders, but he is catching most of them up pretty well. I said there's that front group of D riders, but they don't appear to be on Zwift Power, so whether they are D or not, or just pushing away, but I wouldn't be chasing them down. But at the moment, he's passed a few riders on the KOM, so I reckon he'll be better than obviously. He'll probably have a very good time overall in Cat D, so I think he'll score a lot of points here. Just need to wait and see if he manages to get a group of some sort down the other side before we hit the sprint, because I think that'll be key to try and get a draft through the sprint for the next prime, and then you get a bit of a chance after that for a rest. I'm not quite sure how long it is between after the sprint till the next KOM. Just a quick check. So it looks like possibly about 9k between the sprint and the KOM. So certainly a chance to have a rest if needs be. Or whether the front group will keep the pace up. But we'll see. Last corner now, just coming over the top. So get back to me in a second, and I'll tell you how he did.
Brilliant, thank you. In the C's, Ben has dropped down standings a little bit. He's currently in 23rd out of 45. We've just turned right and we've just hit the actual KOM market, and Ben seems to know exactly which line he's going for. He's just up the power, and he's putting down some huge numbers, pushing over 500 watts at the moment, trying to do whatever he can to finish as high up as possible on the first prime. So he's going hard. Quickly switch over to back to Ed, because I think the Bs will have gone by now.
Yep, the Bs are off. We're about 0.6 kilometers. I had to jump out and jump back in. Made it in 5 seconds. But we do have Paul Chakaro here, currently out in the front of the pack, but mixing it up. There's a huge group here all hanging together. Nothing spectacular going on. They're only pushing about 220 watts, a little 3.1, so nobody's making any moves at this point. I think they're probably just feeling each other out to see how this race might go, but there's probably 25, or it could be the entire, it looks like the entire group is all bunched together here, just kind of, to be honest, for a B group, lazily running the course. So we'll see what happens when my bet is that they all are going to take on the strategy of hitting the climbs and the sprints and not worrying so much about GC. So they might just be conserving until that first climb. And so we'll see what kind of stretch we get out of that. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. Well into the pointy end of this KOM. Ben is still putting out some big numbers, looking to see what he can do. I think we've got one turn left before we reach Verbana, so not too far to go. I think he's got about 600 meters, so that'll come up fairly quickly, and then he'll get a brief respite going down the hill before we hit the sprint. The KOM and the sprints are pretty close together. Just quick check on the actual distances. So the KOM ends at 6.1 and the sprint's at 6.3, and with the downhill that'll come up on you pretty quickly. But he's just rounding, just coming up to what I think is the last corner, and then he'll see the banner and he'll be able to push hard. Gordon, how did Steve get on? Gordon, are you there? No? Okay, so
hello, sorry. I am
here.
here, yes. No, Steve did very well over the top. I think he was third on Zwift, shown on the board, but I believe that's probably first in terms of KOM points on Zwift Power, so he's looking good. I believe there's 2 riders ahead of him, possibly on the course. Grab the names in a minute, but he's just heading down the hill, doing quite a bit of aero tucking, so certainly saving his energy, and he will be hitting the sprint very shortly. He's got 1 hour riding around him, which appears to be pushing sort of 3 watts a kilo at the same time, so if you can get a good draft off the back of him, that'll be an advantage through the sprint. So We shall see. We're just about to hit the sprint, probably in about 100 metres time, maybe even less than that. I think he's just waiting, sitting in the draft of M. Mariano. It's like a Brazilian rider. He's hitting the sprint now, so he's not getting much of a draft. He's putting down good power, but he has passed rider ahead of him straight away. So give it a second, see how we get on the sprint. Looks like he's used feather power up as well, just to get the speed up quickly. Sprint is a slight uphill, so you have some benefits. So very good. Looks like first place on the sprint, just over 16 seconds. So I believe that's probably first on the KOM, first on the sprint. Doing very well. A couple of riders ahead of him on the road, but he will have taken points off them on both the primes so far.
So Ben's put in a fantastic effort up the com. He's come in 5th place with a 3 minute 40.1, and given first place was 3 minutes 36.4 from fellow herd Ben Knopfling. That's very, very tight at the top. You can see Lisa Jones there, also in 3rd place with 338.5. So Ben's got a brief respite of around about 2 kilometres before we hit the sprint. So before we get to the sprint, we'll pop over to Ed and see how Paul's getting on.
Yep, we've started up the KOM. It's stretching out as I had anticipated. Paul's currently 26 out of 39 in this field. He's not the lightest rider out here, certainly not the heaviest, but it is taking its toll. And he's pushing about 3 watts per kilogram right now. So, as a matter of fact, we just hit the KOM start right now, and so he's now pushing 4 watts per kilogram. So we've got a little bit of time up here, about 300 watts for Paul. We'll see if he can make up some time. He is closing the gap with the rider in front of him, and see if he can pass 3 or 4 or 10 of these guys. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. So Ben's just aero tucked down pretty much the whole hill, and he's made up quite a few places. For us heavier riders, gravity is quite often our friend. But so he is just coming around the corner and shortly see the start of a sprint. From my point of view, a good marker for when to go is pretty much just after you see the little sleds on the left hand side, and he's about to hit the line now. Off he goes, 950 watts, 1,000 watts, back to 1,000, 964, pushing hard, sees the banner, go, 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 go. Time to beat is 18.22 and 15.63, and Ben's time is 14.98. Takes a win for the sprints. In 2nd place, fantastic effort from Lisa Jones, 15.63. Ben Knopfling in 3rd was 16.09, and yeah, top 3 for herd in the first sprint. So got a bit of time to recover now. So the next calm isn't until 15.4k, so they've got about 9 kilometers to recover and do it all over again. Ed, are they up towards the top of the calm?
Yeah, we're just coming over to the little bump right before the final ascent to the banner. So we're at 3.6 kilometers, so he's got about 500 meters to go. Pushed about 4.5 watts a kilo. Still hanging there at 24th position, so not making any big moves on anybody in front of them as everybody's pushing hard. And we're just now starting the final ascent, the fairly steep section here, but thankfully somewhat short, 12%, 13%. He's kicking it up. He's well over 4 watts per kilo right now, and he is closing the gap on C. Malone, D. Holland, and D. Smith. Nobody from the herd in the small group in front of him. There's probably 5 or 6 riders somewhat together. We can see the banner now, so we'll see if he can give it any more. He's at 4.5 watts per kilogram. For him, that's 320 watts. He's now starting to pass people. Let's see. He's still pushing harder than everybody else. Is down under 4 watts per kilogram, but Paul keeps staying on the 4. He's just passed 4 or 5 riders. Let's see. The banner is maybe 200 meters out. Paul's still pushing hard. He's got a couple of guys in front of him. Hopefully that'll give him some motivation to see if he can beat these guys through. The overall time here in B's is 2:49.8, so that's a fast time. And Paul makes it through with a 3:36.7, which let's see, trying to see if it's going to bounce back to him. Puts him in 18th position on the sprint for the D's. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. The field in the C's is pretty much shot to bits, with gaps all over the place at the moment. Ben's trying to get back to a group that's about 5 seconds in front, but not entirely sure he's going to get back on. Probably doesn't help that he's just on a 10% hill, so maybe on the other side he'll be able to get close. But yeah, gaps all over the place. Gordon, what's going on with these?
Yeah, so it's probably very similar. We're on the lower part of New York now for, I believe it's 10K or something before we hit the KOM again. So it's very spread out. Steve's all alone. The other rider that was with him through the sprint, Mariano's just about 18 seconds ahead. Steve's in a bit of a TT mode at the moment. He's not putting out great numbers at the moment, so he's maybe just resting up, knowing he doesn't need to chase down the two riders that needs to worry about in front of him, Wendy Chow and Jerome Martinelli. Look like there's a sort of trio of riders working together, so the gap to them is actually stretching out to about 1:20 now. But just as I was saying that, there's a couple more riders come past him, so hopefully he can tag on the back of these wheels and form a little bit of a group, get some pace along for the flat part. At the moment, the D field's probably very similar to the C. It's a bit shot up. There's riders all over the place going along the bottom, but Steve's managed to form up a group with another couple of riders here, so that's looking good. The next thing will just be whether the C's start to catch them, which looks to be about a 2-minute gap still. So by my reckoning, he'll probably get caught somewhere on the next climb, so it could make it interesting for the next lap to see what sort of groups we can form over the top. If he manages to get onto some of the wheels of the C's, he might find himself pulling back up to the likes of Wendy and Jerome that are near the front. But looking good. Looks like he's found a couple of riders for the moment. So we're 10K. Still got another 5K, I think it is roughly, till the next KOM. So
just going to quickly jump in to Ed for the sprint.
Yep, we're on it right now. Paul's pushing about 3.7 watts per kilo, not really going for it. He's with the group here, 287, 300 watts. So he's coming through. Max Szymanski took first in the sprint at 14.98, and Shukro came in at 17.99, so 17th position in the BCAT. James?
Yeah, what else is going on in the Bs, Ed? How's he doing position-wise?
Position-wise, he's sitting at 21st, which if you look at Zwift Power, it's about 20th, so quite a number of riders out of the 39 not in Zwift Power. It's probably about 10 of them. So right now he's in a small pace line of 4 riders, just sucking in at the 5% downhill section here, picking up some speed, but not making any moves. They are considered behind the next group at 11 and 14 seconds out, and probably about a minute behind the leader in the Cat B. So now there's a group of 5, and they'll probably be working together until they come around for the next fun KOM, which is still quite a ways out. What do we got? Another 7 kilometers here of our wondrous rolling hills that we love here on this course.
Evidently a fan of New York.
Yeah, you bet.
Gordon, whereabouts are the Ds now?
So Steve's at 15.9K. He's still got one rider with him. One of the other ones that just passed him has pushed on a bit. You can see he's T-Beston is another Brazilian rider, along with the rider up ahead, so maybe they do know each other, and he's tried to push on because the pace did kick up a wee bit there as they passed Steve. So he's pushing a bit more now, over 2 some of the time, but you've got Steve and an Arm Murphy kind of working together a wee bit, and another rider, A Plant, which is on Zwift Power, Adam Plant. So the 3 of them. Looks like he's on a TT bike, whether that's correct or not, I'm not sure, but got the 3 of them at 11.2K, so about another 4K I make it to the next KOM, but at the moment, I mean, the gap in front seems to be holding at about 1:10 at the moment. But with only 2 or 3 riders ahead, there's probably not a great deal I need to push them down. But just as we're saying there, Adam Plant seems to have had a bit of a kick there, up 3 or 4 watts, which Steve's responded and made sure he's kept on the wheel. So I think he's kind of happy where he is at the moment, but he doesn't want to really let any more riders come past, certainly if they're not competing for points, whereas Adam is. So it'd be good if he just sticks on his wheel, uses him to the next climb, and then hits the KOMs again and smash it up for some more points.
Yeah, so just to quickly touch on the Zwift Power standings for the Cs, perhaps unsurprisingly, the A plus rider is currently leading by about 40 odd seconds. We've also got a couple of Bs in there as well. So in terms of actual classified positions, we've got Andrew Booth leading against Benjamin Boylan, and then we've got a herd rider of Chris Greenland in 3rd place. And then we've got Ben Knopfling and Lisa Jones in 4th and 5th. Another B rider, and then Ben Poynton is in 6th place as the classified riders. So whilst he's 14th in the game, he's actually 6th place out of what would be the end result at the end of the race. So he's basically doing TTF at the moment. He's at 11.3 kilometers. Got about another 5 to go before the first climb. And I think it's about 3 or 4 kilometers till the end of the first lap. But yeah, so Gordon, you must be pretty close.
So yeah, we've just passed the banner for the first lap, so that's pretty much bang on 12.5 kilometers. So 1/3 of the way there. That took about 25 minutes in the Ds here, so we're looking at about an hour and 15 roughly for a finish for Cat T. I'm not sure about obviously the C's, B's, and A's will go a bit faster, so it's a good sort of pace marker to see where you are, how long it's going to take for the 3 laps. But so the next lap should roughly be the same, although obviously things will slow down. Steve is just again sitting on the wheel of Adam Plant, and our Murphy here just waiting for the next KOM. Looks like they're just edging back up to one of the Brazilian riders as well. So I'm not quite sure what's going on there. They seem to have flown past him. But yeah, we're at 13k, which I believe the hill will probably start. Bottom of the hill is probably about 14k. And then we've got a wee bit further before the actual KOM kicks in. But yeah, Steve's looking very good at the moment. Still got that edged under a minute gap now, up to Wendy Chow and sure Martinelli. Jerome, so they're the 2 in front. If you can get anywhere near, you might get some more points. But just as we're seeing the first C rider, or I believe the A plus rider, as he suggested, is coming through, but I won't provide any wheel. Although Steve's having a try, he's going to jump on the back end of this wheel, so he'll give it a go. But I think he might burn out shortly if he tries to chase this A plus rider that's in the C Cat. But yeah, just about hit the bottom of the hill for the second time, and then sure we'll see the same thing, taking it easy till we hit the KOM, and then see if we can try and grab a first place again.
Good job. So Ben's just over the start-finish line, just heading down the hill before we start getting to have a look at the KOM again. Ed, we're at 12.8 kilometers here with Ben. How close behind are the Bs?
We're sitting at 10.3 kilometers right now, so about 1.5 miles to the banner for the second lap. Paul is with his group of about 5 guys, doing about 25 miles an hour, 41, 42 kilometers per hour. Just hanging in there about 2.5 watts per kilogram, trying to hold the draft. So we do have some substantial distance, another 5 kilometers before that next KOM starts. So I imagine he's going to hang here. He's sitting at 18th to 20th position as they kind of rotate through their group here. 15, 20 seconds behind the next group of people. So it doesn't look like anybody's really pushing hard to catch anyone on this. Again, I mean, they're pushing 3, 2, and into the 2. So not really what I would expect out of a bunch of B riders, but it really does depend on their strategy in this, because there's a lot of climbing and there's a lot of sprints here. So 300 points to pick up in the primes and only 100 for the finish. So it makes sense. Back to you, James.
Like I said, it's actually 150 for the finish, just because we always try and go for a third of the overall points for the general condition. General classification points at the end of the race. Even so, there's 450 points on offer, so plenty for the climbers, plenty for sprinters, and plenty for the GC guys as well. Ben is at 14 kilometers, but I believe that Steve is well on way to climb.
So Steve's on that climb up before the KOM, spread out a wee bit. So got one rider, R. Murphy, in front of him, but they're not on Zwift Power, so don't need to worry about them. The other main rider that's around him is Adam Plant, just behind. So Steve's he's going up here between 2 and 5 watts per kilo. So I think it'll be the exact same strategy as the first time, just waiting for that KOM marker, and then I suspect I'll try and see again probably a 3 to 3.5 watts per kilo up the hill. The gap to the couple of riders in front is closed down about 24 seconds, although that's a bit misleading on the hills because they always close in, and then as soon as you go over the top it'll stretch out. But just as we're turning the corner up towards the KOM, looks like the C group is just starting to appear behind them, just 1 or 2 seconds. So just passing the first line for the forward KOM marker as the main group of C riders from the front pass, but that's going to be no help here on the climb. Maybe the second or third C group I could see is a minute or two back. Might be some help if the timing's right over the top of the KOM, but Steve's having a bit of a push, but he's probably just resting up for the KOM at the moment. Looking good, I reckon. Third place probably overall in the Ds, and with full points hold from the first primes, he's doing very well.
Yeah, we're going to struggle to bring any sort of meaningful times to you about the KOM and the sprints for the second and the third lap. We'll have to wait until the end of the race before we can actually see what those results are. But we'll obviously be able to tell you roughly what sort of power these guys are holding. And just on Ben, he is just hanging a right up until I think it's the second com line.
I think it's probably just the first com line where he turns right before the split.
You're right. Yep, it's the first com line that's halfway up the first sort of fairly nasty incline. So it always seems a little bit unfair that you've got to do quite a bit of climbing to actually get to the start of the KOM, but especially with this bit of 15%. But he's just got to get over this and then a little flat bit before we hang a right and then hit the actual KOM line. So he's just coming up to 15K now, nearly half an hour gone. So I think we're looking at probably not dissimilar to the Ds, probably about an hour and 10, hour and 15 for the entire race. But yeah, just over the initial ramp. Is Steve near the top?
He's not. He's actually just not far in front of Ben, so he's just on the sort of false flat section before you hit the second KOM. He's just turning the corner now to hit the KOM, so I expect I'll see ramp up in numbers here. Yep, as expected, pushing up over 3 watts a kilo here. So now he's going for the KOM again, obviously going for the primes. First time round he set a 4:23, which looks to be, well, it's third place on the board, but I believe that's probably first on riders that would count. So if you can get anywhere near that, I don't know, probably anything under 450 for the second time round would be probably enough to take first place. But it's just hard to tell how tired our riders are. He only won the first KOM by 4 seconds, so all to play for, especially with the riders ahead of him grabbing more GC points at the moment. And the advantage, if he can catch any of them, you'll get some riders to draft on the way back down, because certainly, although he took the sprint on the first time, he didn't really have anyone to draft, so it would make it a bit easier on the legs for him if he finds anyone. But he's same as the first time round, pushing up here 3 or 4 watts per kilo. But I suspect we'll probably see Ben approaching very quickly from behind. Has he started the KOM yet?
Just this very second. So he's just gone over the KOM line. I don't think he's got quite as much energy as he did last time around, because he's holding around about 300 watts rather than the sort of 400 to 500 that he was doing first time round. So I think he's probably realised it hurt an awful lot the first time round. So why would you put yourself through that again? But he's holding about anywhere between sort of 300 and high threes. So it'll still be a decent time up the hill, but won't be as fast as the last time round. But he's on his own, which can't help. But he'll see a few Ds in front of him to give him something to aim for. Can't see Steve yet. Lisa Jones is 15 seconds up the road, and she is the next in the classified Cs. Ed, how close to the B? How close are the Bs to the hill?
Paul just hung a right and heading up, just starting the initial ascent. He did get dropped by his group. A group of 4 Bs came flying by, pushing hard, and the rest of his group jumped on, and he wasn't able to make it. So he's about 6 to 12 seconds behind Bruce Bottorff. Also heard who he was riding with. So the group he was with is about 12 seconds ahead of him. So he's pushing it up the hill, pushing more watts than they are. We'll see if he can pick anything up. We got Bs and C riders around him, but virtually riding on his own at this point. So we're just making it up over the first little incline here. We haven't hit that first calm banner yet, kind of the false one, if you will. It's the other one, but he's plugging away all by himself. And like I said, he is losing some time. The group in front of him is now 16, 17 seconds ahead of him. We're just now turning right, and we can see the KOM start. And Paul will be passing it right about now. So figure another few minutes and up to the KOM. Back to you, James.
Thank you. Ben has 2 turns to go on the main KOM. He is 23 seconds behind Lisa and Ben Knopfling. It's got 3 Ds in between him and our group of Cs. We've just got our first glimpse of Steve Wilder, who's 22 seconds up the road. So he might get close by the top, but I'd expect him to catch possibly on the downhill. Where Benny generally tends to fly down, but round, I think this is the last corner. Benny should hopefully see the banner before long, which will give him a little bit of extra life, I'd imagine. Gordon, is that Steve through the banner or not quite?
It's not quite. So that's Wendy Chow, the first D rider through the banner. I'm trying to get a time, but she didn't improve on her time on the first lap, which not unsurprising. But no, so that's Wendy and Jerome through the banner. And if I can find Steve, it looks like Ben has just passed him. So he's near the top. He's on the flat, probably about 30 metres towards the banner. I doubt I'll be able to get an exact time for him. He's certainly eased up compared to the first lap, but he has still been pushing it. So looks like all riders have certainly taken the second one slightly easier. He's a bit more fatigued, but just as he goes under the banner, he is 4 seconds off the back of Ben. So I doubt he'll be able to catch him on the downhill. Looking behind, there's quite a gap, a whole 14, 15 seconds. So he might find himself sprinting alone on this second one, but we'll see. As the gap goes out to about 8 seconds to Ben, but similarly Ben in front, I suspect, on his own as well. It might even be better if they group up and work together for the sprint, but who knows whether they'll just carry enough speed off the hill into the sprint and get a good time, which, I mean, he came first on the sprint on the first lap and barely had any draft, so he probably shouldn't be too worried about it. I expect he probably set a good KOM time there as well, but the gap is still holding about 6 seconds to Ben. It looks like Ben's gone into aero tuck now, so whoever Steve looks like he's having a wee bit of a push there, so he maybe is trying to get onto the back wheel of Ben on the downhill just before, but no, as he just goes aero as well. So, no, coming down the hill now, we'll have the sprint in a moment, and then we'll see how we get on with that.
I think the slightly confusing thing is we've got 2 Australians called Ben. The Ben we're following is still a little bit behind Stillwater. We've got Ben Knopfling just in front. I think Ben Knopfling lives in Queensland, and Ben Poynton is in Victoria. Although I suspect that Ben Poynton will probably correct me if I'm wrong afterwards. But 2 Aussies called Ben, both in C. Ben Poynton's just not long over the line. He's now on the downhill. flying along 80 kilometers an hour in Aerotuck, and looking to pick up some time. But yeah, so second com is over and done with. Not long at all until the second sprint, but I suspect that Steve will get there just in front of him. But just before we go to Steve and the sprint, we'll very quickly go back to Ed for the see how the bees are getting on the climb.
Yeah, so we're at about 16 kilometers, so we've got quite a bit of distance left. He just again hitting that final bump right before the big ascent to the banner. He's pushing pretty big watts, more so than the guys in front of him. So he's made up a little bit of time. They're only 7-8 seconds in front of him. So Paul is trying to make up some time here. His first KOM was a 3:36.7. We'll see if he's gonna beat that on this way up. Looks like he might be passing and catching up to some B riders here. Currently, he's averaging about 3.3 watts per kilogram for the race, which isn't stellar for the B category, but then again, you've got a lot of downhill, and I'm sure these guys are mostly resting, hopefully, between the sprints and the KOM. So strategically, not a high wattage average race here. If you're going for the primes, it looks like Paul is mainly looking at the climbing to get his primes and just finish reasonably well through the sprints. And at the finish, he's currently in 23rd position, 20th on Zwift Power, maybe 100, 150 meters to the banner, coming up quickly, just now passing another B rider. So he's making up a little bit of time that he lost when the big group came flying through him. Let's see, he's almost there, sorry. We're coming up on the banner, and he is through with a 3. He's still 3:36.7, so he did not beat his previous time. Back to you, James.
Thank you. Ben's through the sprint. He put in another good effort. Not quite reaching the dizzy heights of 1,000 watts this time round, but he still held good power up in the 900s for a decent period of time. Didn't beat his previous time, perhaps unsurprisingly, but I think he will either have won the sprint or been very close for the second time round. Gordon, how was Steve's sprint?
Steve's sprint was as expected. He had to do it all alone, although he did very well. He looked like he used an aero power up, so he didn't need any draft at all, and he'd actually set a better time than the first lap, I believe 15:81. So I'm pretty sure that'll be full points on the sprint prime there as well. So well done. And it looks like he's closed down the gap. Wendy Chow's just down to 3 seconds at the moment, but so he's caught up on a rider for GC. Jerome, the other rider that's further up the field, is about 30 seconds. So it looks like he has definitely closed that gap as well. At the moment, it's a wee bit strung out. There's a couple of C riders, other Ben Nuffling and Lisa Jones, by the look of it, just in front of them. If he can get on their wheel and use them to pull back, he might even find himself competing for the first place on GC. But as we go, I mean, we're seeing the B riders starting to appear behind him as well, which they're probably going to touch fast to be able to get a draft off. But if you can get on the wheel, he's just pulling onto the wheel of Wendy Chow here. So looks like he'll at least be competing for second on GC, taking maximum probably on the first 2 sprints. First KOM and a good effort on the second KOM. I think he's definitely looking good for a first place overall, I would say here.
Good job. Ed, I'm guessing Paul is not too far away from that sprint.
Right, about 500 meters out. He's got one other individual with him, D. Smith. I'm not sure. Dylan Smith, and he are riding in. He's only pushing about 2.5 watts per kilo. Let's see if he goes for it. The first sprint, he didn't really throw down any big watts, so I'm not sure his strategy is to go for it, but we're about to hit the sprint banner. He's only pushing 2.6. I would have expected if he's going to try and make up any time, he would have been pounding out. He's doing 2.9 to 3.4, so just cruising through the sprint, to be honest. Going to probably make sure he beats D. Smith here. He's pushing a little bit of power at the very end, about 5 watts per kilo, but only for maybe 50 meters. And he's done. Did not make up any time off the first sprint at 17.99. James?
Got some breaking news. So Michael Hamilton, who also races for Herd, has actually gone quickest for the sprint, the 2 sprints we've had so far, putting in a 14.80. So he'll definitely have won the second sprint. So maximum points for Michael there. Ben is back to his little TT effort. He's got a couple of Australians around him, so maybe they'll let him play and see. He's got lots of lots of Bs coming past him at the moment, so he might be able to grab onto a wheel for a little bit of time. But the rolling terrain of New York that we all love and enjoy may make that slightly difficult, but he's definitely got some company for a bit. Gordon, whereabouts is Steve?
So Steve's on this rolling train at the bottom, as we all love. 21 kilometres bang on. He's just a wee bit on his own at the moment, as the bees are just starting to catch him up. But suspect, I mean, the bees they're probably doing about 3.5 watts per kilo. So whether they'll just be a touch fast for him to jump on, or a touch fast for him to jump on without burning up unnecessarily. He's only got that one rider ahead of him, Jerome, to worry about. So. And he's already got prime points over him, so I don't think he really needs to worry about catching him. But if he can jump on the wheel of any of these Bs or Cs and get a quick draft round, then that'll be a bonus as well. But I see he's done a quick kick just to try and get on this B group, holding about 2.2 or even higher up to the 3s. So he'll probably just have to make a decision whether he can survive in the draft here or whether he has to fall back. But at the moment, if he drafts this group of Bs round, I'm sure he'll be closing that gap down to Jerome fairly quickly. But
it's actually Ben Poynton's group. So Ben's the solitary C in that group of Bs with Steve as well.
Perfect. So I mean, both of them, I think, will just be wanting to sit with this group, use the draft, coast round as much as they can, saving some energy. Because I believe still got about another 6 kilometres for the KOM, probably about 5 before we even start the climb again. Even these rolling terrain here, where it kicks up to, I don't know, on the way round, it kicks up 6 or 7%, I believe, at some point anyway. So any opportunity like that, the Bees probably will have a bit of a kick. So it's easy to get dropped out the back, and then you find yourself in TT mode again.
Yeah, no, Ben seems to be pretty content with a bit of company at the moment. So we've got 5, 6 riders in this group at the moment. Ben is throwing down an aero power up. Not entirely sure why, but he's certainly doing that right now. Possibly just to get rid of it in the hope that as he goes over the lap banner, he gets a feather. So perhaps not the worst idea in the world. But we are at 22.5 kilometers. Ed, how far behind are the Bees?
So Paul is sitting at 20.5 kilometers. So we're good. 7.5 kilometers out from the KOM. He is all by himself. He's 8-9 seconds behind the next couple of B riders. There's a few A riders in front of him at 24 seconds, and the balance of the group is way out there. So he's pretty much by himself. I guess he's got this Dylan Smith is still hanging out. But I did notice that, you know, even the fastest of the B riders are only averaging 3.4 to 3.5 watts per kilo. So obviously the strategy is not to go all out for GC on this, but to take advantage of the primes. So we still, like I say, we've got another 6.9 kilometers of rolly hills to get through before we start that next climb. Back to you, James.
I think you're really going to have to get over your hatred of New York at some stage, especially if you race at some stage this weekend. Ed Finney,
not going to happen.
Will we see you?
I doubt it.
On that note, Gordon, I'm guessing, are you racing tomorrow?
I believe I'll be racing the Premier slot, 12 p.m. midday in the UK tomorrow. It's normally the busiest slot, so I'm expecting a good race. Lots of competition as always at that time, so it'll be very interesting.
Hoist a beer for you, Gordon.
Yeah, well, hopefully see you there as well. Maybe the later shift, but just touching back on Steve there, he's really closed down that gap to Jerome with all of these B riders. He's just drifted off the back, but that 30-40 second gap, I believe, is now down to about 10 or 15 seconds. So certainly using the draft of the faster riders is giving a big boost to catch up. But He's still got riders with, although he's dropped from that B group, he's still got 1 or 2 C riders coming past that's given him a draft as well. So it could make an interesting last lap, but 24K in early act, and he's looking very good.
Yeah, Ben's doing okay. He's still in that group, and just on the topic of the other races we've got this weekend, there is the DS Challenge between myself and Marcus Neal over at Team WKG. We're having a season-long battle to see who finishes on top, and this Sunday we are both racing at 2:30 UK time. I'm fairly certain we'll have other members of our respective teams around us as we fight each other up the prime. So if you're not doing anything at 2:30 on Sunday and you feel like coming out for a ride, or if you feel like just having a little bit of a watch, will be, or rather, I'll be live streaming my ride, and I know that Marcus will do a post ride video as well, and his videos are great. So if you ever get a chance to have a look at any of the WKG videos, that they're always a good bit of fun. So definitely recommend that. But
who's leading so far?
I believe I've got a little bit of a lead of about I think about 13 or 14 league points. So I got off to a good start, and hopefully we can continue that going throughout the rest of the series. But we'll see how it pans out. But back to this race. Ben is coming up towards 25 kilometers, and I think he's not a million miles. Oh no, I was just about to say he can't be far away from the lap banner, but here it is, just coming up now for the end of lap 2. So 45 minutes. So we're looking at about a 23 minute lap. So based on that, we should finish on about an hour and 8 minutes. Not far to the KOM. Ed, how's Paul getting on?
He's sitting at 23.1 kilometers, so we've still got 4.5 plus before we get, obviously, before we start the KOM. Now he's going to start climbing long before that, which is somewhat brutal because, as you know, there's a pretty substantial climb even before that KOM banner starts. So it takes its toll. Also, we have not taken the turn out of the park to head up into the sky tubes yet, but he's still sticking with Dylan Smith, and he is still 7-8 seconds behind the next couple of B riders, pushing about 2.7, 2.8 watts per kilo. So not really hard. It looks like D. Smith is pulling away by a couple of seconds, and Paul is just going to kind of hang right here and do his thing and maybe make up some time on the climb. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. Yep, still going downhill. Just quickly switch back to Gordon to find out how Steve's getting on.
Yeah, so Steve, when I said he was dropping off a wee bit from that group, it looks like Ben's group and the rest of the C's had it, or certainly eased up into the lower 2s or 2.5 at most during that fat rolling section. So Steve managed to get back on the back of the group. Looks like nearly probably a dozen riders here in this, a mixture of C's and D's, maybe even a 1 or 2 B's in there, I'm not sure. So he's sitting on the back, he's sitting on the wheel of Martinelli at the moment, which is the only other D rider that needs to worry about in the group. So I think it'll be the exact same as before. He'll just draft this group as much as he can till he hits the KOM, and then he'll smash it again. Whether he tries to make a move on Martinelli before the end of the lap or just waits for the sprint, only time will tell. But at the moment, he doesn't have to do anything. He's playing it perfectly, sitting in draft with this group, putting the least amount of effort out. So yeah, looking very good.
Yeah, so we've got still got Ben and this nice group of 6 or 7 riders. We've got about 1.5k to the start of the third and final KOM. So we'll be hitting the blue roads before not too long at all. Sitting in 12th place in his category, and let's just quickly switch over to Power Live. So at the very front is our A+ rider riding in category C, and then our classified Cs. We've got Benjamin Boylan up front with Chris Greenland, who rides with a herd tag as well. Good to see. We've got Tsuyoshi Takahashi, and then Steve Danoff and Andrew Booth, followed by Ben Knopflin. we appear to have lost Lisa Jones a little bit further down the field. Actually, no, sorry, I take it back. Lisa Jones is actually in this decent group of riders, but that's probably about to be smashed to smithereens as we hit the blue roads and the sharp inclines. Just a quick note of power. Ben Poynton is holding 2.6 watts per kilo and an average of 283 watts. And for most of us, that is a particularly massive number. But he's doing a great job. It's worth noting that Ben actually had quite a bit of time off the bike for the Australian winter. So he's been getting back on and getting stronger all the time and doing a fantastic job. But we are just about to turn right and hang towards the first KOM line, and then we'll do another right and then head towards the second one. But all looking okay. Eds, are the bees firstly over the lap banner, and are you getting towards the blue roads?
Yes, we are past the blue banner, or past the event banner there. So we are officially on the third lap, and we are not up on the blue roads yet. We're at 25.4 kilometers, so we just passed the banner back there, and we've got a little bit of distance here. So what are we? 2.5 kilometers until the official start of the KOM. We should be turning off here shortly to head up the steep incline, and he's just coming around the corner, and we'll be heading up and starting his ascent for the final KOM. Again, Paul is sitting at 23rd position, currently all by himself. The next guy's 12 seconds behind, and the person in front of him is 19 seconds. So pretty much no man's land. He's out here riding all by himself, but only pushing about 2.3 watts per kilogram. Back to you, James.
Thank you. Just a quick switchbacks to Gordon and find out how Steve's getting on.
Yeah, he's on the lower part of the climb, not the KOM yet. You can probably see from he was in the same group as Ben, which is, it looks like it's pretty much blown up. There's riders just strung out sort of 5 or 10 meters apart, not really anyone together in ones and twos. So he's pushing sort of 2.5 up this hill, just staying on the wheel of Martinelli at the moment, probably just waiting for the KOM to have a go again. By the look of it behind, we can start to see some of the B riders, maybe even 1 or 2 A riders starting to appear at the back. So not that there'll be any help. I bet they will fly by this group, I would have thought. But Steve's looking good, just on the wheel of Martinelli, just waiting for this KOM. Then I suspect we'll see the same again, trying to push over 3 watts, 300 watts of absolute power out for the climb, see if he can grab some more points, but and some more power-ups. We've seen him use the power-ups a couple of times, both the Feather power-up and an Aero power-up for the sprint. Managed to get maximum points, so I'm not sure what he's got in store now. That's something to pass the banner a few times on this course, so definitely good opportunities to get power-ups if they will help, certainly for the sprints and the finish. But just as we're hitting the KOM, and he's off again. He started off with 4 watts, and we'll see how he gets on. If he can get over the top of this KOM in first place, I suspect he'll put it that way. That'll be good. If he can get first on GC, he's certainly got first on a lot of the primes, so it's looking like a very good race for Steve at the minute. But yeah, how's Ben getting on? He must be on the KOM now.
Yeah, it's all good. Just to add to the confusion, we've got 2 Australians called Ben, both in C, and they are right next to each other at the moment. So Ben Poynton is just leading out Ben Knopfling. Ben Poynton, who we're following tonight, is trying to hang on to low to mid 300s, pretty much what he did on the last climb. And we're still in the lower stages of a climb, as we see a bunch of A's go flying past around about Mach 2.5. No chance of catching any of those, but they are absolutely flying past. As another B rider flies past as well, holding 4.6 watts per kilo. Ben's holding around about 3.0 at the moment. Highly unlikely he's going to beat his first time at the hill, where he held about 4 to 4.5 watts per kilo. But it's a brutal course. Having to do this climb 3 times in the space of an hour is never particularly nice. It's relatively short at about 3.5 to 4.5 minutes, but it's pretty steep and pretty brutal. So the second and especially the third climb is always going to be really tough. But I think he's got 2 turns to go, and he'll be extremely relieved to see that final banner. Ed, are the bees on the hill?
Oh, we are on the hill. We're at 27.2. We're just hitting the first KOM banner, not just kind of the false banner, if you will. And Paul's pushing about 3.5 watts per kilo. He's sitting in 24th position. He's got Y Matsushita in front of him. It's a Cat C with a couple of A guys just went flying by, as you indicated earlier. They're moving at over 4 watts per kilo. I see 5.1 on one of the A riders now, so they're screaming up the hill. Paul currently is about 6 seconds behind a D rider. One other B rider behind him, a couple 3-4 seconds. And he currently is behind the next B rider, probably around 20 seconds. As I said, 24th position here, 20th on Zwift Power, with an estimated finish time of 1:15. So currently 27.4. So we're just coming over the rise, and we'd be making the turn and starting the KOM. James?
Yeah, so Ben is just coming around to what I think is the final turn of this climb. We'll ramp up to 10 or so percent, 10, 11, 12, 13. There's me saying this is the easier of the 2 climbs. We're currently on 14% on the last ramp up towards the banner. See, Ben Knopfling's wisely saved his feather until the very steepest part of this climb. And then they will see the banner and they will know all they have is downhill until the next sprint. But we've got, I'd say, probably 300-400 meters to go until the banner. 28.5 kilometers done, 55 minutes. Probably looking at a finish time of around about 1:10. Quickly switch back to Gordon because I think Steve is pretty close to Ben.
He is, yeah. I mean, he did very well halfway up that climb. He actually caught up with Ben and overtook him just as we were approaching that last corner. Ben's taking a bit of a lead back on him there, but I was surprised when he pushed up and managed to catch Ben. So looks like he's having another very good climb here. I'll try and find if I can get his time in a moment, but he's also looks like he's distanced himself from Jerome Martinelli for about 10 seconds, 12 seconds. So I suspect it'll be a good time up the KOM and manage to edge out a lead. If he can just find a wheel or two on the way down for a draft, then he's looking in a very good position. Just as we're seeing a few riders coming past, tends to be A's and B riders now, so most of them don't provide much of a draft if they'll be going too quick for him. But just as we're reaching the top, I'll see if I can find a time. He certainly didn't beat his best time of 4:23, but judging by the way that he was catching up with C riders on that hill, I reckon it'll be a pretty good time.
But I think it's fair to say that Ben's a little bit pooped. He dropped down to about he dropped down to 0 watts before he hit the downhill. So he was just sort of rolling along until he hit the hill, and then he realised he had to start pedaling a little bit before he could go into air attack. So he's just pedaling along until we hit the sharp decline round about now, and I suspect we'll see 0 watts again very, very shortly. But unsurprisingly, 3 times up a hill is pretty knackering for anyone, especially if you're carrying about 110 kilos. So back into air attack, and he's flying down. He's overtaking loads of people, and he's doing a great job. Not too long until the sprint. Ed.
Yes, and Paul has just finished the rise before the final ascent. We got a kind of a little flat section there, so we're there. He's been pushing pretty hard up this hill. You know, Paul's not. He's a pretty lightweight guy at 72.6 kilograms, so he's been pushing some pretty good watts up this hill. I'm not sure how he's going to do against his 3:36.7, which is the first lap. You got to admit, 3 times on this thing is horrible. It's taken its toll on these guys. I know he's pushing over about 4.4 watts per kilo, so he's been saving up. But man, it is a difficult course to do once. It's really bad to have to do it 3 times. It's not just a physical race, but mentally, looking ahead and knowing, oh man, I've got to do that 2 more times. I have to do that 1 more time.
Just to
It
jump
really
in,
takes its toll.
just to jump in quickly, Ed. Ben's on the last sprint. He has actually picked up an error at the right time. He's having a good old go. Overtaking a couple of riders now, pushing hard, holding 600 watts towards the banner, and 3, 2, 1, done. All the primes are done now for Ben. All he has to do now is finish. Quickly switch back to Gordon because I'm sure Steve's got to be thereabouts as well.
Steve's right in the middle of the sprint. He's managed to get another aero power up, putting out some good numbers again. See if I can find out a sprint time. He certainly didn't beat his second lap, or actually he has beaten it again, of 15:62. So that's an amazing effort to improve on his sprint every lap because riders were doing the opposite and getting slower and slower. So I'm pretty sure he will have taken the primes on every lap for the sprint. Very good. So at the moment, he's doing good. I'm just trying to see who's probably the next rider behind him to worry about. But he's probably got about a 30-second gap over any other D riders. So he's looking very good for both the GC and the prime points. If he can find a wheel in front, we can see Ben Nuffling's about 5 or 6 seconds ahead. He appears to be using a draft power up. I'm not quite sure why because there's no one ahead of him. So a bit of a waste on that one. But yeah, he probably just doesn't even need to stay ahead of the riders that are behind him. Just needs to cruise round. He will have grabbed maximum points on a lot of the primes. So looking comfortable. 31.6k, which I believe the finish line is somewhere around 37.6. So about 6k to go. I think he's got it in the bag now. He just needs to enjoy his finish and jump on any wheels he can and go for the overall win for GC as well, which he's got what's approaching a 40-second gap now, which I suspect will stay that way till the end.
Yeah, Ben is currently sat in 13th place out of 45 MCs, which is more than respectable, especially with the points he'll have picked up, especially on the sprints, but definitely on the first climb as well. He has what I believe to be 5.3 kilometers to go. I think the finish line will be at 37.6. He's got a few bees have come to keep him company again, so hopefully he can latch onto them all the way over to the finish. So not too far to go now. Last 5 kilometers, so should be all over and done with in about the next 10 minutes. Ed, are we going to have a sprint?
Well, we're going to find out here. We're at 30.8, so he's about half a kilometer out. Still pushing about 2.3 watts per kilogram. Now realizing he's 30 seconds in front of the next guy and 30 seconds behind the ones in front of him. So I think he just needs to hold position. We hit the sprint. He threw out his aero helmet, pushing 3.3. We just had a gentleman go flying past him. Let's see if that spurs him on. He's pushing 4.2, 4.1. He did kick it in quite a bit earlier this time around. Let's see how he does. And he did not improve over his first sprint, but I think he did better than the second sprint on that. I'm sure, as I would be. These guys are all really, really tired and anxious to get this over with. So now we move on to the last 5-6 kilometers of rolling hills to the finish. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed. So Ben unsurprisingly wasn't able to hang on to the group of bees that went past him, of which one of them was a perfectly average 54-year-old man called Max Szymanski, who's currently holding on to 4.3 watts per kilo. And if I can do that when I'm 54, I will be a happy man. And given I can't do that at age 39, I suspect that's relatively unlikely. So Ben's basically got a TT to the end. Nearest sea rider behind is Scott Henry, who's 47 seconds back. I can't see any C's in front of him. They're definitely at least more than 20 seconds in front. So I think Ben's just going to be looking to hold station in 13th place and bring home what will be, oh dear, having to do maths after half of what Chianti. He'll probably get about 138 points for 13th place. So that'll be a decent haul, especially with his sprints, which I think 50 for the first and 49 for the second, and probably high 40s for the third as well. So but Ben's looking at bring home good points. So I think he might be a podium, might be just outside, but we will find out in about half an hour's time when I sort the results. But not too far to go now. We're at 34 kilometers, 3.5 to go. Final stage of this race. Gordon.
Yep, so back to Steve here. He's probably similar position to Ben, just cruising around the rolling part of New York now, hoping this race will be over soon. He's roughly about half a kilometre behind, 33.5 at the moment. He has eased up a wee bit, so the gap back to Jerome is sitting at about 20 seconds. Doesn't appear to be anyone near around the C's and the B's, and the slightly faster Ds that are probably not in Zwift power, 20 odd seconds ahead. I can see Ben there as well. There's a group of B riders about 4 or 5 seconds behind, so you might be able to jump on their draft for a minute or two and just hold that gap away, as we're starting to see a few more A riders appear on the board as well. You can see the herd rider Kevin Flood there, 55 seconds back, so I bet he'll catch in the next few Ks as well. But it's quite a mix-up now from all categories, from A's, B's, C's and D's, just all probably hoping it's finished, and see how many of them are actually still competing for a sprint finish. But I think Steve's going to have it easy. 34.1k finish, I make 37.6k, so about 3k, probably about another 6 or so minutes, maybe 5 minutes. You can get a draft and then he'll be done. It's like potentially a maximum haul in points. We'll have to wait and see, but pretty sure it'll be a first place. And after a first place last week, he's looking very good for the series. So I'll have to try and race him myself sometime, see how I get on.
I think Steve's biggest concern is probably going to be getting upgraded.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, looking at his power for today, I don't think he's too bad. He's probably not going to upgrade. He's on a 2.4 average. I don't know what his 20-minute power was like, but he has sort of held it pretty consistent. So he needs a few efforts before he'll get upgraded. So I would have thought similar to me, maybe by the end of the league, looking towards Category C, maybe for the next season.
Good stuff. Ben is down to the last 2 kilometres, and the gap behind has actually grown a bit, so it's 55 seconds back to Scott Henry. However, on that note, Lisa Jones is only 9 seconds in front. So if Ben's seen that, and based on the power he's putting out at the moment, I think he has. He could definitely pick up a position in the last 2 kilometres. So I think. Well, I was going to say I think Lisa's struggling, but she's holding out about 3.5 watts a kilo. So maybe not, but he can definitely see a B just in front of him, who's 6 seconds in front, and then Lisa's 2 seconds in front of that B. So might not be the end of this race for Mr. Poynton just yet. So 8-second gap. He's still holding out around 300 watts. Not too long to go. Come back to me before too long. Ed, how's it going for Paul?
Looks like we're about 4 kilometers out from the finish. He's currently about 47 seconds behind the next B rider in front of him, and 15 seconds in front of the C rider behind him, and the next B behind him is 49 seconds. So he's pretty much in no man's land out here. Paul's pushing about 2.5 watts a kilo. Are probably just figuring now that it's position-wise, as long as he holds position in front of I. Jackson at 51 seconds behind, which it doesn't look like there's a chance he's going to catch up. And I doubt he's going to be able to make up on B. Stratton that's 35 seconds in front. So he just holds his position. He'll take 24th and pick up his finishing points. Again, he's probably, 3 kilometers out, and so not a huge distance, about 2 miles, and he'll be done. And I'm sure, as the rest of them, as soon as they came over that last KOM, I think I heard a big sigh. There will be another sigh as we come across the finish line and call this one done. Back to you, James.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I think Lisa's woken up to the danger because she's stretched out the lead to about 13 seconds now. We're down to the last kilometre. So Scott Henry is now a minute and 15 back. So no danger from there. And I think Ben Knopfling's been taking it fairly easy after the last climb and sprint as well. He's minute and 19 down and hanging on to around about 2 watts per kilo, and I do not blame him at all. Lisa's now 14 seconds in front, and it looks like by some of the orange numbers, yes, here we go. Here's the finish line. Lisa's over the line, and Ben is coasting through to a finish at 37.2 kilometers, and we are done. Over to you, Gordon.
Yeah, so Steve had a wee mini peloton. There were a couple of riders, a B, a C, and an A rider, I believe. So he's just approaching the line. He's been dropped off the back a wee bit, but that draft for a minute or two is enough to actually extend the gap over Jerome, which behind him is over a minute now. So he doesn't really have much to race for at the moment. Whether we'll see a sprint finish from him or not, I'm not sure. I certainly wouldn't be sprinting after all that. That's plenty enough effort, but he's just sitting in the wheel of... looks like another D rider, although they're not on Zwift Power. So a T Ryan and there's one or two more A riders. I can see one of the full send racing team. Normally a few of them are in the A's as well, just pushing behind, doing 8 watts per kilo. So we might even see him catch up. But I believe we've got just hitting the 37 kilometre mark now. So the banner should just be approaching around the corner when they come into sight. Not pushing it. Oh, he's having a sprint now, pushing up 5-6 watts a kilo, 7 watts a kilo even. Pulling away, having a sprint finish, although it's not for points or anything, but he was there, he had a sprint, and he finished the line, or passes the line in just over an hour and 14 minutes. So I suspect that second and third lap were even quicker than the first, so very well done. First place, I'm pretty sure, maybe even a full haul of points on the primes. But yeah, Ed, how's Paul going? I think he's our one racer left on the course.
Yep, he's at 35.7, so not too far out. Was noticing on the board that most of the B riders, you could kind of tell they're running, everybody's running about 2 to 2.4 watts per kilo, just cruising in until you can notice when they're getting close to the finish line, because all of a sudden the watts per kilo bounce up to some huge number, because I think everybody's just kind of throwing down near the end. So we'll see what happens with Paul. He's at this point he's at 3.1. Just getting on the wheel of a C rider deal from Cryogen. Again, 36 kilometers. You had, is it 37.6 kilometers?
37.6. So yeah, he's got about a kilometer and a half to go.
Right.
I think the actual finish line was 37.2. So he's down to about the last kilometer.
About 1 kilometer out. So. He's pushing 2.4. The next B behind him's pushing 2.6, but he's 41 seconds back, and he's a minute 30 seconds behind the guy in front of him who's done. So any B's in front of him have already completed the course. So now he's actually just getting on the tail of D. Elliott, and looks like these guys are going to ride it in. Still about 900 meters out. Nothing spectacular going on, pushing 2.2, 2.3 watts per kilo. Again, it doesn't do any good to beat himself down at this point. He's going to finish in 24th position, or if we take a look at Zwift Power, it'll be 20th on Zwift Power, and well in front of a few others. Some of the guys that fell off back there, Connor Pollock, I think may have had some kind of technical, because he is totally off the board there, and Paul Vance fell out of the race also, which is too bad, because Paul's a strong rider. So we're at 37 kilometers. The event banner's in front of us, and Paul is just going to cruise on in. Like he's just going to kind of roll on through. 2.3 watts per kilo doesn't do any good. And we are finished with a time of 1:06:40. Back to you, James.
Thanks, Ed, and thanks to all of our riders tonight. But most importantly, big thanks to Damon for providing the fantastic pictures we've been able to bring to you. So a big thanks to Paul Shuckero, Ben Poynton, and Steve Wilder. Also to my co-commentary team of Ed Finney and Gordon Sloan. I'm James Bailey. Thank you to everyone who's been watching us, and good night.
All right, thanks, James. Go to bed.